we must have a zeal of like-mindedness. You must understand that we must have a zeal of like-mindedness for Yahweh. We must be on one accord with him, and we should strive to likewise be like Phinehas. In Numbers chapter 25, 10 through 13, and the Lord said to Moses, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, has turned back my wrath from the people of Israel, and that he was jealous with my jealousy among them, so that I did not consume the people of Israel in my jealousy. Therefore say, Behold, I give to him my covenant of peace, shalom, and it shall be to him and to his descendants after him the covenant of a perpetual priesthood, because he was jealous for his God and made atonement for the people of Israel. You see, Phinehas thought just like Yahweh, and he felt for and what Yahweh was feeling. He felt jealous with Yahweh's jealousy. Now we must love like Yahweh, our Father, and we must want what Yahweh, our Father, wants. Now many people say that they want more, so they in fact covet and take time away from their families and from worshiping and spending time with Yahweh and Yeshua and following them. By working all of the time, or even overtime, and stressing, which plays a bad part on health and affects sleep, just to acquire more things in this world instead of the heavenly things. But this is actually a deceptive tool used by the enemy, Hasatan, to keep you distracted and away from Yahweh and our Messiah Yeshua, which without Yahweh or Yeshua as a cornerstone center and daily focal point in our lives, it gives us a bad home life and health in general. Now Numbers 26, 52 through 57. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Among these the land shall be divided for inheritance according to the number of names. To a large tribe you shall give a large inheritance. To a small tribe you shall give a small inheritance. Every tribe shall be given its inheritance in proportion to its list. But the land shall be divided by lot. According to the names of the tribes of their fathers they shall inherit. Their inheritance shall be divided according to the lot between the larger and the smaller. This was the list of the Levites, according to their clans: of Gershom, the clan of the Gershonites; of Kohath, the clan of the Kohathites; of Merari, the clan of the Merites. You see, it goes on from there, but what it's showing us is that Yahweh gives to us, his children, what we need as we need it, as he is our Father and Creator, and he knows exactly what it is that we need. Now, as we move ahead, we see that Yahweh spoke to Moses about daily offerings and Sabbath offerings, along with new moon and month and high holy feast day offerings in Numbers chapter 28, verse 1 to chapter 29, verse 40. Now, we are still required to keep these offerings to Yahweh, but not with sacrifices, as Yeshua, our Messiah, is the ultimate sacrifice. But we are to offer prayers and worship and songs of worship to Yahweh continually, along with morning, noon, and evening prayers, which are all available at followYeshuaNow.com, along with keeping Yahweh's new moon and Sabbath and high holy feast days and not man-made holidays. All these helpful tools, once again, are available at followYeshuaNow.com. But now, as we move a little bit on, we must learn not to fear the enemy. You see, the enemy is smoke and mirrors, things not to be feared. We are only to fear Yahweh, because you see in 1 Kings chapter 18 verse 46 through 19 verse 2, and the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he gathered up his garment and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. Elijah flees Jezebel. Now, in 19 verse 1, Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and now he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "So may the gods do to me and more, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." But you see, she, Jezebel, sent word to Elijah saying, "So may the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." But one thing we got to also remember, Yahweh tells us that tomorrow is never promised. That's why we need to get our lives in order with him today. But now remember that Yahweh is the one and only true God. So she actually threatened Elijah with a false imagination that Elijah was really not to even fear or worry about. You see, even though Elijah stood for Yahweh, he feared and ran and fled for his life. But remember now, we are only to fear who? Yes, Yahweh. And to be like Yeshua, our Messiah, and not fear. And what was it that Yeshua did? Well, he instead stood firm for Yahweh and give his life for each and every one of us. Now in 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 7, "And the angel of the Lord came again a second time and touched him, Elijah, and said, Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you. And he arose and ate and drank, and went in the strength of that food for how many? Yes, 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of God." So you see, Elijah had been supplied by Yahweh food to last him for 40 days, just as Yeshua did through the wilderness. But remember now, Yeshua went on the word of Yahweh for 40 days and 40 nights, as he tells us. But now in verse 9, we see that Elijah came to a cave and lodged in it. But Yeshua would in fact later on come to a cave to be placed in it upon his death. But he would in fact arise from that cave. And now we see in 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 4 through 8 that Yahweh sent help to Elijah in the form of an angel of the Lord. But Yeshua would later send help to all of his people, each and every one of us who needed it, in the form of the Ruach Kadosh. So now, why was it that Yahweh seeked and helped Elijah? Well, the answer is very clear to us. In 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 9 through 14, "There he came to a cave and lodged in it. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him and said to him, Why are you doing this? Why are you here, Elijah? What are you doing here, Elijah?" And he said, "I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away." And he said, "Go out and stand on the mount before the Lord." And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind, and after the wind an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake, and after the earthquake a fire. But the Lord was also not in that fire, and after the fire the sound of a low whisper. Now when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak, and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there was a voice that came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And he said, "I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away." Why were they seeking his life to take away? Because he was standing strong and firm in the Lord. And now it's not going to be easy, because the Torah and the New Testament basically tells us that we are going to be persecuted for the word of the Lord. But now in verse 11, we see that Yahweh reassures Elijah that he is all powerful, more than anything and anyone everywhere. just as we must continually read and meditate on Yahweh's words to renew our strength daily. Now for Elijah, this all followed after his 40-day journey. So in verse 11, Yahweh tells Elijah to stand on a mount before the Lord. But remember, after Yeshua, our Messiah's 40 days in the wilderness, that Hasatan stands with Yeshua, our Messiah, and offers him everything he sees if he would what? Only bow down to the enemy and turn away from Yahweh and give man or somebody else, a false god, which is a fallen angel, the power and the praise and the glory. So I ask you today, would you bow down to the enemy for the riches of the world, or will you stand by Yahweh and bow to him only? Just as within verse 18, when Yahweh left 7,000 alive in Israel, those who did not bow a knee to the enemy Baal, along with every mouth that had kissed him. So we must stand strong for Yahweh and Yeshua and not turn from them or their ways. And Yahweh will, in fact, protect us. Now in 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 19 through 21. So he departed from there and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen in front of him, and he was with the 12. And Elijah passed by him and cast his cloak over him. And he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, "Let me kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow you." And he said to him, "Go back again, for what have I done to you?" And he returned from following him and took the yoke of oxen and sacrificed them and boiled their flesh with the yokes of the oxen and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he arose and went after Elijah and assisted him. So we see that Elijah passed and anointed to be prophet in his place Elisha. And what did Elisha do? He immediately made a sacrifice to the Lord. But Yeshua would later pass down his commission to his disciples, which is each and every one of us today, to spread his true messianic gospel of Yahweh. Not just any gospel, but the true messianic gospel of his. And after, he would make the greatest sacrifice ever, which would be himself for all of mankind. So I ask you, what daily and new moon or month and high holy feast day and Sabbath sacrifices have you been making to Yahweh lately? May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom.